If your soil feels hard, lifeless, and no matter how much fertilizer you add, your plants still struggle, the problem might not be nutrients. It might be life. This is something I realized after a long time growing on my small balcony. I used to think feeding plants meant adding more fertilizer, but some pots just wouldn't respond. The plants stayed weak, roots didn't spread well, and the leaves never looked truly healthy. That's when I started to understand. Soil is not just something that holds a plant, it needs to be alive. And one of the most important parts of living soil is earthworms. Earthworms don't just live in the soil, they build it. As they move, they create tiny tunnels that make the soil loose, airy, and better at holding water. As they consume organic matter, they turn it into nutrients plants can actually absorb. In the process, they also bring in beneficial microbes and natural growth stimulants. Soil with worms feels soft, rich, and full of energy, and soil without them slowly becomes compacted, dry, and dependent on outside inputs. The problem is, in container gardening, especially on a balcony, worms rarely show up on their own, and many of our habits unintentionally make the environment even worse for them. Soil dries out too fast. There's no organic layer on top, too much chemical fertilizer. All of that pushes life away. So the question becomes, how do you bring life back into your soil? For me, the answer turned out to be surprisingly simple. I stopped trying to feed the plant directly and started feeding the soil instead. This is where a simple recycled 5-liter paint bucket changed everything. I cleaned it, poked a few small holes around the sides, and buried it right in the middle of my pot. Nothing fancy. From the outside, you wouldn't even notice it was there. But inside, it became something powerful. Every day, instead of throwing away kitchen scraps, I put a small amount into that bucket. Vegetable peels, fruit scraps, crushed eggshells, just everyday waste. Then I closed the lid and let it sit. At first, I had the same worries most people do: smell, flies, mess. But none of that really happened. Because everything stays contained and it's surrounded by soil, the process is quiet, controlled, and surprisingly clean. Inside the bucket, something natural begins to happen. The scraps don't dry out too quickly, and they're not exposed to direct sun. They stay moist, slowly breaking down over time. It creates a microenvironment that feels a lot like the forest floor, where leaves fall, decompose, and feed the life underneath. And that is exactly what earthworms are looking for. Worms are not just attracted to food, they are attracted to balance, moisture, safety, and slow decomposition. When those conditions exist, they come, they stay, and they begin to multiply. I never bought worms, but after a while, when I checked the soil, I started to see them. Not a lot at first, but gradually, more and more. And that's when everything changed. The soil became softer. Water started soaking in instead of sitting on the surface. Roots grew deeper and stronger. The plants looked healthier in a way that felt natural, not forced. It made me realize something very important. Instead of trying to grow plants, I needed to grow soil. Because when the soil is alive, the plants take care of themselves. This method is not fast. It doesn't give you instant results like chemical fertilizers. But what it builds is something much more powerful: a small ecosystem right inside your pot, something that improves over time instead of getting worse. If you're growing in containers and your soil seems to be losing its strength, maybe you don't need more fertilizer. Maybe you just need to bring life back. And sometimes all it takes is a small recycled bucket and a little bit of kitchen waste each day to completely change the way your garden grows.